The pack called her the useless Omega, until the Alpha King saw her secret power during the war. In the Ashvale pack, every wolf had a place, and everyone knew that Mira Wolf's place was at the bottom. She could not shift fully like the others. When the moon called and the pack ran together through the dark forest, Mira stayed behind, half wolf and half girl, trembling in the shadows of the training grounds. The other wolves laughed at her. They called her the useless Omega, and the name followed her everywhere, whispered in the halls, muttered in the dining hall, shouted across the yard when she dropped a tray or tripped over her own feet. Mira never argued. She only lowered her eyes and walked away, because arguing never changed anything, and because deep inside her, she carried something she did not fully understand herself. Whenever she touched a wounded animal, something strange happened. A rabbit with a broken leg would stop shaking. A wolf pup separated from its mother would fall asleep in her arms within minutes. She could calm the wildest of hearts with nothing more than her hands and her quiet voice, but she told no one. She was already an outcast. She did not want to become something stranger still. Her days were spent in the healing tents and the kitchens, chopping herbs, boiling water, carrying bandages to wolves who barely looked at her. King Draven Ashvale, the Alpha King of the pack, ruled over hundreds of wolves with strength and command, and though Mira had lived in his territory her whole life, she doubted he even knew her name. To him, she was simply one face among many, a low-ranked Omega, who did not matter in the grand order of the pack. But peace in Ashvale territory did not last forever. Scouts returned one evening with terrible news. The Nightfang Horde, a rival wolf kingdom from beyond the Blackthorn Woods, was gathering at the border. Their warriors were known for a terrifying gift, a curse some called it, that turned them into unstoppable, frenzied fighters the moment blood was drawn. Wolves who faced them in battle often fell not to a blade, but to madness itself, torn apart from the inside by a rage that never stopped. War drums echoed through the Ashvale camp that night. Warriors sharpened their claws and steadied their nerves. Mira, as always, prepared bandages and healing salves in the tents, expecting to remain behind the lines as she always had. No one asked for her opinion. No one thought to include her in the plans. She simply did what she was told, filling her role as the quiet, useless Omega who kept to the shadows. The battle came at dawn. The Nightfang Horde crashed through the tree line like a wave of shadow and claw. Ashvale warriors met them head-on, and for a while, it seemed the pack might hold its ground. But then the frenzy began. One by one, wolves who were struck by Nightfang claws began to change, their eyes turning wild, their movements losing all control. They attacked friend and foe alike, consumed by a rage that no command could break. Screams rose over the clash of claws and teeth. The healing tents filled quickly with wounded, and panic spread through the ranks faster than any physical wound could. Then it happened. King Draven, fighting at the front to protect his people, was struck across the shoulder by a Nightfang warrior. The wound itself was not deep, but the curse worked fast. His eyes changed, turning from sharp and commanding to wild and unfocused. His warriors, trained to follow him without question, suddenly found themselves backing away in fear, because the wolf standing before them was no longer their king. He was a beast on the edge of losing himself completely. No healer dared approach him. No warrior dared raise a hand against their own alpha, even to stop him. The pack stood frozen, watching their king slip further into madness with every passing second, and it seemed as though nothing could be done. Mira had been carrying bandages toward the healing tents when she saw him. She did not think about rank or fear or the name the pack had given her. She only saw a creature in pain, lost inside himself, just like the wounded animals she had comforted her whole life. Her feet moved before her mind could stop her. She pushed through the crowd of stunned warriors, ignoring the shouts telling her to stay back, and she walked straight toward the king. She reached him and placed both hands against his chest. The pack held its breath. At first, nothing seemed to change. Draven's growl deepened, his muscles tensed as if to strike, and for a moment it looked as though Mira had made a terrible mistake. But she did not pull away. She spoke softly, the way she always did with frightened animals, her voice low and steady, and slowly, impossibly, something in him began to still. His breathing slowed, His eyes, wild and unfocused only seconds before, began to clear. The tension in his shoulders eased, and the beast that had nearly consumed him retreated, leaving behind the king the pack had always known. Draven blinked, looking down at the small, trembling Omega whose hands still rested against him, and for the first time in his life, he truly saw her. The battlefield had gone quiet around them. Warriors who moments earlier had backed away in terror now stared in disbelief at the Omega they had mocked for years, the one they called useless, standing calmly beside their king, as if she had done nothing more than calm a nervous pup. When the immediate danger passed and the horde was pushed back for the moment, Draven pulled Mira aside, away from the noise of the battlefield. His voice was rough, but not unkind. He asked her how she had done it, what power she carried that could pull a wolf back from the edge of the frenzy curse. Mira hesitated. She had hidden this part of herself for so long that speaking it aloud felt like bearing an old wound, but there was no more room for secrets, not with the war raging around them. She told him about her bloodline, about an old gift passed down through generations of her family, one the Pax had long forgotten. It was called the Beast Heart Gift, an ability to calm even the wildest hearts, wolf or beast, no matter how far gone they seemed. It was the very reason she could not shift like the others. The power that lived inside her took the place of the strength most Omegas were given, and for her entire life, she had believed it made her broken instead of different. Draven listened closely, and something shifted in his expression. He was not looking at her with pity or mockery now. He was looking at her the way a king looks at someone who might hold the answer to saving his people. He explained what the pack was truly facing. The Nightfang Horde's greatest weapon was not their strength or their numbers, but the frenzy curse itself, the very thing that turned wounded wolves into uncontrollable threats. If there was a way to calm that curse, even for a moment, it could change everything. Draven asked Mira to fight beside him, not hidden away in the healing tents, but on the front lines where her gift could matter most. Mira had never been asked for anything by anyone in the pack. She had never been trusted with something important, let alone something that might decide the fate of everyone she knew. Fear rose in her chest, but so did something else, something she had never truly felt before. It felt like purpose. She agreed. The following days of battle were unlike anything Mira had ever experienced. She moved through the chaos alongside King Draven, no longer hiding her gift but using it openly. When an Ashvale warrior fell into the grip of the frenzy curse, she reached them just in time, placing her hands against their trembling bodies and speaking the same soft words that had once calmed frightened animals in her care. One by one, warriors who might have been lost to madness were pulled back from the edge, standing again beside their packmates instead of turning against them. When Nightfang warriors closed in, consumed by their own uncontrollable rage, Mira's touch worked just as powerfully against them. Their frenzy faded, leaving them stunned and vulnerable, easy for Ashvale warriors to subdue without further bloodshed. What had once been the Nightfang Horde's greatest advantage began to crumble beneath a power no one had expected. Carried by a wolf everyone had once dismissed as insignificant. Draven fought at her side throughout it all, shielding her when enemies came too close, trusting her instincts when she said a warrior could still be saved. The wolves who had mocked her for years began to watch her differently now, their laughter replaced by something closer to awe. The useless Omega, the girl who could not even shift, was turning the tide of a war that had seemed impossible to win. The final clash came at the edge of the Blackthorn Woods, where the Nightfang Horde's remaining warriors made their last stand. Without the frenzy curse to rely on, their numbers faltered, their confidence broken. Draven led the charge that finally pushed them back beyond the border, and Mira stood at the heart of it, calming panic wherever it threatened to spread, holding the pack together when it might have shattered. By the time the sun set on that final day, the Nightfang Horde had retreated fully, their threat broken for a generation to come. The Ashvale pack had won, but everyone who had fought that day knew the victory did not belong to strength alone. It belonged, in large part, to the Omega who had spent her whole life believing she had nothing to offer. That evening, before the entire pack gathered in the central courtyard, King Draven stood tall and called Mira forward. She walked through the crowd that had once mocked her, feeling every eye upon her, but this time there was no laughter, no cruel whispers, only silence and respect. Draven spoke to his people with a steady voice, telling them what he had learned on the battlefield. He told them that strength did not always look the way they expected. He told them that the gift they had once dismissed as uselessness had saved their king, saved their warriors, and ultimately saved their entire pack. He declared, before everyone present, that Mira's place in the pack would never again be counted among the lowest. He named her the keeper of the beast heart gift, a title of honor rather than shame, and elevated her as his most trusted ally within the pack's hierarchy. Mira stood there, tears rising in her eyes, as the same wolves who had once called her useless now bowed their heads in respect. It did not erase the years of loneliness she had carried, but it gave her something she had never truly believed she deserved, a place among her pack, seen for exactly who she was. In the days that followed, life in Ashvale territory slowly returned to normal, but nothing about Mira's place within it stayed the same. She still visited the healing tents, still tended to wounded creatures with the same gentle hands, but now warriors sought her out with respect instead of ridicule. Young pups who had once teased her began asking to learn from her instead, curious about the gift that had once been hidden away out of fear. King Draven found himself watching her often, not out of duty, but out of a quiet gratitude that had grown into something deeper over the weeks since the war ended. He remembered clearly the moment her hands had pulled him back from the edge of losing himself entirely, and he understood that such a moment did not simply create respect. It created a bond that could not easily be broken. As the seasons changed and peace settled once more over the Ashvale pack, the story of the war spread far beyond their territory, carried by traveling wolves and whispered around fires in distant lands. It was not remembered as a tale of a king's strength alone, but as the story of an Omega once called useless, who turned out to hold the very power that saved her kingdom. And within the walls of Ashvale territory, no one ever called her useless again.